Hi everybody, welcome again to another program of Yeshiva Classroom, and we're here at the same time every week, God willing, and also on YouTube. You can catch us on YouTube. We want to focus a little bit on Holocaust and that slogan, never again. That's important, of course. But we have to realize that we're not only honing in on the victims, but we must hone in on the perpetrators, the murderers. And the German government keeps wonderful records of who served, where, and what capacity they worked in the camps. For instance, here's a picture of a physician testing gasoline injection. I have a name here, and here that's one, and here's another. Professor Karl Klauberg. He conducted experiments on Jewish women, which were horrific and often met in death. So we know the people. The professor who was the conductor of the experiments, and the Germans have very good records of who did what in each camp. Here, for instance, the roundup, and of course, infamous chambers of crematorium where the bodies were stuffed into a chamber and cremated into ashes. So that we have knowledge of. But the victims and the survivors, we know many details and the gruesome different stages of torture they went through. And I'm asking that the perpetrators, the murderers, be announced, be tried in absentia. All those murderers and put down, for instance, in a death camp like Auschwitz, who was the person that shoved the Jews into the showers, quote unquote, and locked the doors? Or who was the German that stood on top of the chamber and threw in the deadly gas cylinder, which annihilated the thousands of people at one time? Who was in charge of the camp? Who did the experiments? Who did the torture of the prisoners? It's all recorded. And I'm saying that the German government, right? They're the ones that are responsible for bringing these murderers to trial, and there must be hundreds and hundreds of them. And you say, well, listen, they're all dead now. What can we do? What are we going to do? They can't be tried. They're all dead, probably, most likely. The point is, that's not important. The important thing is we have to write a biography of those murderers, where they came from, and what they did as far as torture and murder and all kinds of heinous crimes committed against the Jewish people. And there should be a book compiled where their atrocities are made known. And they should be put on display at various towns throughout Germany, like Dusseldorf and Hamburg and Berlin, and throughout Bavaria, to show where these people came from and what they did. Because who's going to remember never again? All the people died out. Andrea Merkel, she'll give you blood money, the Jewish monies that were melted down from their gold holdings and then paying it back to the Jewish people. And, oh, we won't criticize the state of Israel, we won't do anything like that. But she's not going to be there forever, and who cares if she criticizes or not criticized? We want to find out justice, and that means all those perpetrators, all those murderers who committed all those heinous crimes throughout the imprisonment from the years 1939 till 45. So that is what the Israeli government should be bringing to the World Court, and specifically against Germany and her allies of those people who participated and actually murdered thousands upon thousands of Jews. So I charge the Israeli government with laxity and not having these killers brought to justice. And in the name of humanity, these should be shown to the world exactly who they were, and especially to the Germans who lived and were neighbors to these murderers. So much for that. But the point is that this picture speaking talk is primarily aimed at education and bringing back the Jewish people to the understanding and appreciation of learning Torah and keeping the Torah that was given to us in front of Mount Sinai to the 3 million people who stood in front of that mountain and saw the mountain burning and smoking, and the sound of the shofar and Moses coming down with the 10 commandments engraved in 2 stones, the only physical object that was ever given to man. And you say, well, you know, the Jews have suffered so much, you see, that God has punished them for many things throughout the ages, and it's true. It's true. When we have gone astray, when our people have disbelieved and gone after other ideologies, that we have been punished for that. And it's like soap and water washing clean those Jewish people who have transgressed. And you say, well, how about the Gentiles? They have done a lot of very evil things against many peoples. And the answer to that is that their grime and dirt and error is so deep that it would be impossible for soap and water to cleanse them. Now, you know, there's so much to talk about, and one of the most important subjects is belief. First of all, let me just say that being an observant Jew has many benefits, many benefits. And I might list a few of them. First of all, you have peace of mind, that you realize that we have a tradition, a transmission of the Torah through our forefathers from Mount Sinai, who were there and saw and handed it down through the generations. And two, we have a vacation, right? Yeah. One is peace of mind. We have peace of mind that we know we're going on the right path. Two is vacation. An observant Jew has a vacation like 2 months out of the year, when you consider the absence from work on the Shabbos and on the holidays, which were ordained and transmitted to us through the Torah. and you add them all up. So before there were any labor unions, we had we had times of rest and enjoyment and reflection, and especially the reflection on our Holy Torah. Yeah, so again, that's peace of mind. We have vacations. We have the laws of marriage, which keep man and wife together through the mikveh and through other directives that we can go into. We have the positive thought of temperance. You don't find Jewish men and women drunkards as you do the Gentile, although it's on an increase. Why is there temperance amongst Jews, observant Jews? Because we have alcoholic drinks on happy occasions, and especially on the Sabbath. We are very happy and drink wine and imbibe and celebrate with our family and friends. So those are some of the listings that a Jew has, an observant Jew will attain by just being observant and doing the mitzvahs, the commandments. And basically, what are they? You know, you have peace of mind. You know you're going on the right path. You have the laws of marriage. You have automatically vacation and play period times. So there are many benefits that we can accrue by just being observant. The camaraderie with friends and the synagogue and people of like mind. So there's a whole litany of positive results. You know, I have my granddaughter here from Dallas, Texas, and I don't know if she's going to make an appearance, but she is really knowledgeable on a lot of subjects, and if she feels it, she'll come up. You hear me, Dasi? Okay. So the other thing is, you know, this is being recorded on July 2nd, right? And we just finished the Pasha of portion of the Torah reading of Balak, where Bilam was a Gentile prophet. And in this Sedra, in this portion of reading on the Shabbos that just passed, we are to realize that Moses was not there and the Jewish people were not mentioned. Neither of them were aware of the fact that God was helping the Jewish people, and the fact that Bilam was hired to curse the Jewish people. And God intervened and said, only what I will tell you to say will you say. And as a result, in Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 6, it says over there that God loves the Jewish people. And there's several places in the Torah. You should have a pen out there because you can look them up and look these sentences up at your convenience. You know, in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 14, it says over there, behold, God is in the heavens and all that there is therein, and on the earth and all that there is therein, but only in your forefathers. God is speaking to the Jewish people. But only in your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, did I delight to love them. Did I delight to love them, to choose you, your offspring, their offspring, as of this day. As of this day. As the day we're reading it right today. and as we're learning it, as we're hearing it today. So it's significant that God, the Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of the Jewish people, choose the Jewish people special, and we're responsible for many things. And even though many of us have fallen by the wayside because of a lack of a Jewish education, or born with a low quality of wanting to seek out God, right? God, a man is a mava, a seeker. He wants to seek out God, and a seeker of the real God, the Jewish God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In another place, where does it say that God loves the Jewish people? In Deuteronomy, chapter 7 in Deuteronomy, it says over there, you should not intermarry, right? You should not intermarry. And over there in chapter 6, it says, I have chosen you, you should be holy. What is holy? Holy means to perfection in emulating God's characteristics. Perfection in emulating God's characteristics. So you should be holy in that because God is holy, and He has chosen you as a treasured people from all the people of the world. He has chosen you as a treasured people from all the peoples of the world. That's in chapter 7, verse 6 in Deuteronomy, and chapter 14 in Deuteronomy, chapter 1 and 2. Right? Chapter 14, verse 1 and 2. So try to look them up. So over there in chapter 7 in Deuteronomy, we have the fact that it says that Jewish people are the smallest people of the world. And if you look closely, you say, well, listen, there are other nations that are smaller than the Jewish people, but it speaks about people who have a ideology which is different than any other ideology. It's the smallest people, the smallest group that worship and understand that God is the true God of heaven and earth, and He is the one that we should serve. Does God need any serving? No, of course not. Everything is for Him, it's from Him. But we serve God by doing the directives, the commandments, and the thoughts that He wishes to transmit to us. That's how we serve God. That's how we serve God. And where does it say over there, right? You should serve God. So it's not the large nation in chapter 7, it's the smallest nation. Chapter 7 in Deuteronomy. Because over there it says over there that it is the smallest nation, and that and that God has loved the Jewish people because of the covenant He made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and simply for the fact that He loves the Jewish people. That's in chapter 7, chapter 7, verse 8, right? So all these places, Deuteronomy 23-6, Deuteronomy 10, chapter 10, verse 14, all of these places are where God has specifically announced that they are a people that is not to be counted amongst the nations. In 23:9, is the people that dwells alone. Again, 23:9 in Numbers, right? In the book of Numbers, not Deuteronomy like the other passages I gave you, but in the book of Numbers, the fourth book of the Bible, it says that is the people that dwells alone. They're not to be counted among the nations. And then it continues, Bilam, the Gentile prophet, saying that it is, he said, let me die the death of the righteous, let my end be like theirs. So right automatically we see that there is a next world, right? Automatically, the Gentile, Bilam, tells God that let me die the death of the righteous, of doing the commandments. Let my end, E-N-D, be like theirs. Let my end be like theirs. So that's an important place where we learn out that there is a next world. And of course, there are many other places where the next world is brought down. When it says in the Torah, it says Abraham was gathered into his people, or Isaac was gathered into his people, or Moses was gathered into his people. Although they were buried singularly, they were not buried with their forefathers. This is to tell us, this is to teach that when our demise is up after 120 years, our mark will determine if we get to the next world, depending on the commandments that we do. Because, write this down, Deuteronomy 8:2, because it says over there, the journey that you have traversed, I afflicted you and tested you. Afflicted you and tested you, to elevate you, to see if you met the challenge successfully. I have afflicted you and tested you to uplift you, to see whether you kept the commandments or not. To see whether you kept the commandments or not. That's the journey that we have through life. And we wonder, you would think that many people would want to devote much more time to accumulating the thoughts of God and His directive to the Jewish people, so that we would attain the next world and be assured of a good mark. So we wonder why many more Jews are not devoting more time to learning and to doing good deeds so as to attain a good mark. And it says that the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, the learning of Torah is equal to all the mitzvahs. And that is what is paramount in our lives. And, you know, recently they had a gathering of educators open to the public, basically from all schools in the Nassau County area. And it seems that it doesn't say outwardly, but it seems that they're concerned with many of the observant children going astray, and not following in the footsteps of their forefathers. And this may be for several reasons, and the participants of this teaching gave many different reasons as far as children know more about what's happening in the with drugs and other things that parents are not involved with, don't know about, and do we have to, others say we need parenting skills, got to be stronger. Poor father's working, trying to make a living. How much time does he have for his children? And a whole litany of different ideas. But are they pragmatic and realistic? I don't know. Can't they put them in practice? One of the first things they have to do is that they have to have to do away with basketball tournaments between different yeshivas of day schools. I mean, the time necessary to practice and to play late evenings, it takes away from the time of trying to learn. And I asked the rabbi, head of yeshiva at the school, and I said, you should do away with these programs because they're too time-consuming and not geared to what the students should be. I said, let them learn martial arts or self-defense, you know. But the rabbi says, well, this is what the children want. This is what they want. Now, you say, you say the rabbi say, well, we can't have the parents give in to all of these technical advances, an iPhone and a game phone and all those other things. The parents got to say no. And it's the same thing with the rabbi, the head of the yeshiva. But the students want it, so we have to give it to them. Not all the schools are doing that. I know the South Shore of Long Island, led by Rabbi Kamenetsky, does not have a basketball team with all the trimmings and traveling throughout the state and neighborhood to play different schools. They don't have that. Yeah, so that's one thing that we're touching on. And while we're at the Sedra of Bilam and Bullock, we might touch on the narrative that transpired in that portion of the Torah reading, where Bilam was going out to curse the Jewish people. Hopefully would give it an okay sign by God, because God happened. It doesn't say Vayikra called on Bilam, but it says Vayikar, he happened on Bilam, and he told Bilam that only again what I teach you, you shall do and say. Now he still hoped that he would be able to curse the Jews, and on the way he rode a donkey, a trusted donkey, and the donkey went off the road and he hit him. Then the donkey went to the side of a fence and he bruised Bilam's hip. And then the donkey laid down unexpectedly. And again, Bilam hit him. Why are you doing these things? And the donkey turned around. It might be only a vision, but the donkey spoke and said, why do you hit me, being that I have been your trusted servant all these years? And what did Bilam answer? He didn't answer that. Wow, the donkey is talking. But what did he say? He said, I have transgressed, I have sinned. And that he should have realized, I should have realized that I'm going on the wrong path. And that's what we have today. When adversity strikes, we have to examine our ways. We have to examine our ways to see what we are doing wrong and not in congruent with the Torah's teachings. Because after all, the Torah is a schematic history, major points of teachings, thoughts, and theories of God expressed in the events that transpire in the Torah, expressed in the events that transpired in the Torah. And you know, if you look over there in 7, in Deuteronomy chapter 7, 11, and 12, write it down. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 11 and 12. You see that it speaks of doing the commandments and the directives and the mitzvahs, chesed, kindliness that I have that I've taught you. Do them, and because he uses the word akev, because your reward will be great. Your reward will be great. Your reward afterwards, akev, will be great. And just like Yaakov, Jacob, it has the three same letters in Ayin, Kuf, Vei. And afterwards he came, grabbing the heel of Esau. He was second born of the twins. He was the second born. But he uses the word Yaakov, Akev, because he grabbed the whole of the heel of Esau. Because afterwards he will come. Afterwards he will come in. And we see that this is what happened to Bilam. Because it says afterwards he will come in. He uses the word Akev over there by Bilam. So afterwards means that at the end of this life, Akev, the reward, another word for Akev, the reward, just like Jacob was rewarded in the end with the first born charge. So we will be rewarded, and all observant Jews will be rewarded for keeping the mitzvahs. Afterwards, after this life is ended. Very nice thought, and something that we should be proud of, and for that matter the Jewish people should be proud of. The fact that we have a book that teaches us the ways of life, and was given to us and still carried on by the observant Jews till this day. And unlike the ancient peoples who have disappeared and have become extinct, like the Midianites, the Canaanites, the Aaronites, all these people are extinct, like the dodo bird. Right? Dodo bird came extinct, I think, in about 1912, and that was a bird that couldn't fly in America. And they hunted it to the time that it became extinct. But the Jewish people remain vibrant and continue to follow into the footsteps of our forefathers who received the law, received the Torah, received the directives on Mount Sinai in that holy generation, right? In that generation, unlike any other of the false religions and the Mickey Mouse. And that's why we're getting so many people, so many Gentiles coming to the realization that there's only one God, and realization of how Abraham's teachings were incorporated in the Bible, and everything was done in front of millions of people. And they're leaving these false ideologies and coming to Judaism. And when I say Judaism, I mean Judaism as practiced by our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and not the watered down so-called denominations in Judaism, because there are no denominations in Judaism. It's only set up so that the transgressors will have someone to say that what they transgress is not a transgression. And you know, there are many people Jews who are born with this spirituality, this quest for spirituality, as are Gentiles. Unfortunately, they're heading in search of error. But the Jew has this quality, because after all, we stood on Mount Sinai and we received the Torah there, and God spoke with us. Right? I am the 10 Commandments. He spoke with us. I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God, only the God of the Jewish people. And the first commandment. It's not talking about Gentiles. It's not giving it to Gentiles. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. Because God participates in this world. God participates in our decision making. And in order to realize that, we have to, there are books. I mean, there are a lot of books, but I'm picking out books that are so important, that are succinct and to the point, and are divinely given through transmission. Like, for instance, the books of Rabbi Victor Miller. He makes a commentary on Victor, on the Halavoyim, Chayas Halavovos, the duties of the mind, and to get to that belief, it's very hard, but the prerequisites might be that God is the KKP. What is the KKP? God is the essence of kindliness. He is the essence of kindliness. He gave your mother and father the kindness to be kind to their offspring, just like he gave to animals to be kind to their offspring. And any kind of a favor that your relatives or others gave to you, it's only because God put that kindness into their hearts. Number two, knowledge. God has knowledge of everything that was created, because he created it. Unlike a scientist who took the minerals and substance from the earth, which God created and made something, God is the one that put the substance into the earth and made these chemicals, whether it be aluminum, steel, uranium. So God has knowledge of everything, and he has knowledge of pharmacopoeia, all the possible remedies that one may need, whether it's in the furthest reach of the world. He knows of what knowledge of everything, and he can get it. Power, that God has the power. It's like a jailer giving food to the prisoner. It's like a jailer giving food to the prisoner. He is dependent on the jailer. Whatever the jailer gives him, he has to take, more or less. And that's how God has us in a jail, so to speak, in that he gives us only the food that was created by him. In our planet, can we imbibe of that? So that is a jailer, so to speak. Now, you know, we spoke a little bit about day schools and how some people are observant and Some people are not observant even though they came from great families and observant families, or people that have no knowledge of Torah and fear of heaven and the God of the Jews, and yet they are a seeker and they sought out the God of the Jewish people and became observant from nowhere. And you say, well, you say Chabad, Hasidim are very influential, and they have their graduates, whether it's a man or a woman, who marry and go out to the far reaches of the world to try to bring Jewish people back to Judaism. I mean, and there must be hundreds of communities throughout the world, thousands or more. Like in Florida, where there's a preponderance of Jews, you have every little townlet has a welcoming house by Chabad, and they plant that in their youngsters, and they work at going out and reaching out to non-observant even while in high school or below. And you say, well, that must be a great way to inculcate the beauty of Judaism. But I was speaking to people in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, where there are many, where many of the Chabad Hasidim are based, where the offices are, and where many live, and they have synagogues there too. And I was speaking to one of the congregants, and there are Chabad graduates who are not interested or show that they're interested in doing great good deeds and reaching out, and just the contrary, may speak off color of something that's not pertaining to Shabbos in shul while davening. So even though they had a great upbringing, so you see the Gemara says that man is composed of three entities: Father, Mother, and God. And God has 50% of that equation, of that newborn. And as a result, God is like a helicopter. He can see what goes ahead, what passed, and what's present. And how can he see what's ahead? Well, God knows all the possible equations that man could choose from. And he knows that all the equations, so God knows the resultant that could possibly be picked. So God gets 50% of the makeup of the child. And you say, well, you think a little bit, you say, maybe God saw that, for instance, a person has no background in Judaism, parents are not observant, so we'll give them a larger dosage of spirituality, search for spirituality. And that's how I feel it might be, where God gives this strength of seeking godliness and the ability to rationalize correctly with a high IQ and choose spirituality. Because everything is in the hands of God except the awe of heaven, the fear of heaven. And that's why you find in whatever avenue of endeavor, whether it's cultural, business, medicine, you'll find a Jew as one of the top participants and leader in his field. Many combine this, for instance, field of intelligence and medicine and spirituality observance, strong spirituality observance, and have it both ways. But many who do not have that high intelligence or interest in spirituality will put their emphasis on accumulation of wealth, and forget about the spirituality, that God is the one that they should be addressing their efforts to. That God is the one that they should be addressing their efforts to. So those are some things to think about, because we are made up of Mother, Father, and God. And you know, if you take aptitude tests, for example, and you come out high in sociology, that may be an indication that you're really spiritual. Sociology, the study of different peoples. So, you know, there's no, not that I know of, a test of spirituality, but everyone has that ability to seek God. The one that is a strong sense, it doesn't need much encouragement, as opposed to one who is weak in spirituality, needs a lot more attention, and not to go after all these so-called organizations that are religious in nature, that will have playtime and socializing with the opposite sex, and having billiards and ping pong and going out on outings. No, you have to. The yeshivas and the day school have to spend more time on the instruction, religious instruction, the fear of heaven. It says over there, the fear of heaven is the beginning of knowledge. The fear of heaven is the beginning of knowledge. And just like broccoli, it's hard to digest and appreciate. So it is with Torah. Some people find it very hard, and that's why you have to work hard on them and give them more time, more patience, so that they will be able to get that appreciation. But no, they're having conferences of how they should do this and understand the child, and about a relationship between all kind of things, as opposed to which is a proven cell. The Haredim, the black and white people with the large families, who have intensified the instruction, so that it'll be easier for them to achieve important goals in life, which is the preparation of the next world. That's it, preparation of the soul world. And if you break Shabbos and you don't keep the basic mitzvahs, you get kores, which is excision, which means that you don't get the next world. And if youngsters especially say, well, that's a long way, you know, I can't see that, but it comes very soon. And then when you're at that crossroads, you're not going to have. You're not going to have anything to fall back on. Look, here I'm giving you shows that God is in our midst, and that's something that we have to realize, that God is in our midst. And you see, the peanut, you know, the peanut grows under the ground. The peanut grows in under the ground, and it knows that man is going to eat the nut. It knew that. It's just a smart nut. So what did it do? It made a tissue around the nut, a fine tissue. And see here, I'm taking the tissue paper off, right? Where does the nut come to have a tissue? Here is the tissue, here is the nut. And that's what the nut knew. Now, can you explain that by evolution? And to say, well, we have evolution, and it didn't come back overnight, but it happened many, many years ago, billions upon billions of billions. Look, here's a nut, and here's the tissue. People don't even realize that there is a tissue paper, so that the nut will be clean when you eat it. And here's the tissue around the nut. So every peanut has a tissue paper so that it won't get the eater into eating dirt and foreign substances. So that was significant, and yeah. So there are many things that we can speak about. For instance, the fact that God rides the heavens to help the Jewish people. God rides the heavens to help the Jewish people. You know, evolution is in other words, in the portion of here, this is a silver leaf. It has a varnished surface to it. Where did that varnish come? So it's be appealing to the eater. So you know what happened. You know, when a forest fire takes place, it consumes the trees and the shrubs, and even habitats of animals and good fruit-bearing trees. The good are consumed with the weeds. Weed is the plant that's out of place, right? So what happened? That's a forest fire was let loose many times in our history when the Jewish people have gone astray. When the Jewish people have gone astray, they have caused a conflagration of fire, combustion, which destroyed the evil and the good people together, especially the Second World War when the communists, socialists, and assimilationists took charge of Jewish teaching, and they were heading in a wrong direction. As a result, God set out a conflagration, a fire, which destroyed all the trees, whether it's good or bad. And that is significant in that we must not let this happen again. We must learn from history. Never again doesn't mean to march around shouting, but it means marching into the yeshivas and learning